Hey everybody, welcome back to Avalon, episode 26, and today we're back working on our new train station. So, as we talked about last episode, we still need to have a couple different other means of accessing the station beyond just the trains, right? So we need to have some road connections, we need to have some nice ways for pedestrians to get over to the station, and not only to the station, but to all the different platforms on the station, which is the greater challenge here. So it does take a little bit more planning than I think I originally imagined to actually connect all these pieces together. So today's episode is the second part of developing this skeleton. So first and foremost, we're going to connect the road, and I made some pretty deliberate decisions here to not connect this little loop to any of the grid that's surrounding the station. So we're going to have quite a bit of development here. We're going to have some residential, we're going to have some commercial, and it'll be a pretty dense kind of development of all these different things. So there'll be lots of buildings surrounding this, and even kind of intertwined with some of those branches coming into the station. But I really want to encourage people coming into the station to transfer to a new line, or transfer to an underground metro, or even walk to their destination rather than taking the car. So this is really only existing, well, one, because we need to have services that can actually access these buildings, but also we do happen to have a highway connection that is nearby that was originally used. It's another, I think it was like interchange B or something in that interchange episode. That is, you can see it kind of hanging out down there. It's going to eventually have to come out underneath the train lines and then connect to our main highway. So it made a lot of sense here to make a connection to the train station via highway. So you do have a way to transfer by car, and then take your car to the highway and then go to some other part of the city if that happens to be the fastest way. But there's no direct connection to the grid surrounding this. So you can see we're actually going to build some of these roads that will be on the outside of the station, like this main avenue here, but they won't connect to the little loop up there. So there will be this little loop, and what I really want to do with this in the future actually is I want to create like a shopping center, kind of commercial center that is very pedestrian oriented. So lots of walkable pedestrian areas, and in fact I'd like to actually continue the elevated paths that we're going to need to get over top of our trains to each of the platforms. I want to have this all feel like one cohesive, like kind of organic looking pedestrian walkway that extends out over all the different platforms, and then even goes into this little loop where we'll have lots of shopping and things of that nature. So it really feels like a hub beyond just transit. It's a hub for a lot of things, right? So that's what that little loop is for, and that's why it's so wide. It also just kind of made sense to make a wider loop there, because I didn't really want to have the road extend out or wrap around the station or anything like that. I just wanted it to be a single connection point for the road on that side. So that's what I settled on. But much of this episode will be developing the roads and the highways to connect to this station. It was a bit more of a challenge than I thought it was going to be, mostly because, well, for one, we need to get underneath these tracks somehow, and I don't want to interrupt the flow of the tracks. So there's that, and I also want to make sure that we're developing all these other surrounding roads in a way that is conducive to good development in the future. So we'll have all these different residential and commercial buildings around here. So I had to plan that as well. A lot of forward thinking required that kind of slows down the process of building, and I've kind of noticed this actually in a lot of my projects within Avalon, is that if we try to do something unconventional, right? Like if we have a kind of oddly shaped piece of the city, then it always takes like double or triple the time to actually plan everything around it. But I also think that that's when you get some of the best looking stuff. So I don't really mind taking some extra time to really dive into that and try to develop something cool. So that's what we did this time. But getting to the road connections here, you can see we're going to go ahead and go underneath the train. This worked pretty well actually, but I am a little bit nervous about this area. Kind of going back to that whole like needing a lot of planning thing. We've got all of these trains, and we've got this highway here, and the highway is actually at ground level, so we can't even build any roads underneath the highway. So, or we could, I guess, if we like lowered the road even lower into the ground. But there's not a lot of room for roads that actually connect to anything, and I don't really want to just have like random buildings scattered in there, but I also really want some high density in this area. Like this is gonna feel like another town center, very similar to the downtown area, and of course, not as tall. It's not gonna have a skyline quite like the main part of Avalon, but it'll certainly be as dense, and so it'll be a bit more of a challenge to figure out like how we make sense of this area. but again, this is where some of the funnest parts and some of the coolest parts of the city come from. So I think this will be a fun challenge. But as I talk about all this, you might notice that I'm doing something a little bit strange with the highways right now. So we are connecting to our upper loop, but we're also creating a little kind of underneath section where the highway splits off and goes underneath the loop. So what I decided to do for this is, instead of having the highway go past the station and then have like an intersect or an interchange, I guess is the word for it, that branches into the station, I decided to actually bring the highway underneath this whole loop and then basically turn the entire loop into a roundabout exit. So it comes, you can exit off the highway, enter the roundabout, and then at the other side of the roundabout we'll have another exit point, and we'll bring that piece along with the highway and connect it to our interchange on the other side. So I think this is a bit more of like a clean solution, but it also, oh man, it's gonna make it really challenging to work in this elevated roundabout area. We're gonna have to really wrestle with the terrain and wrestle with all the different buildings that go in this area to kind of mask the fact that we've got all of this height offset and we've got like tunnels and things going on. So that'll be a bit of a challenge when it comes up. But in the meantime, we won't worry about it. We're just going to worry about connecting all the roads for now. So here I'm connecting the highway on the other side. Now you can see that the two lower sections, those are the main highway, and then we'll also have, of course, exit ramps coming from the top as well. Now, what I could have done here, and it would have been really easy, is I could have just made the entire thing curve to the right and just go back to the main highway. That was the original plan for the highway before I built this anyway, and it would have been really easy to do. And in fact, I actually built that interchange. I didn't even show it in the video, but I built the whole like curving highway and merged it all. And then I sat back and I looked at it for a minute, and I realized that the direction the highway was going, well, if I would have just created an interchange here instead, we actually need to have a highway going in the opposite direction, because we're pretty much at the edge of that big grid expansion that we did, that still hasn't been filled in, but nonetheless is still a big grid expansion. So we do need to have a highway going off in this other direction, and this is kind of a cool opportunity to try to create an interesting interchange that so it's not only a T interchange, but it's actually a double stack T interchange, because we have the two exit ramps coming from each spoke of the highway, and then we also have the two exit ramps coming from the upper spokes of the highway. So it's like a double stack T interchange, I guess. And then added to that is that we have the rail line only like 10 meters off the ground just right next to it. So we need to have the entire interchange sloping downwards so that it can get underneath the rail. And so when I envisioned this in my head, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna suck. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm gonna have to tweak all these roads, and it's gonna be such a pain, and like it'll take so much longer than a regular interchange, and like, is this really worth it? And I just decided to do it anyway. And I thought about this a lot while I was building this, and I wanted to talk about this in the episode, because I get these questions all the time. People are saying, like, how do you have the patience to build these big projects, or how do you have the patience to work for so long on a single project? And then the biggest question, like, wow, how do you make such cool things in City Skylines? And I think that one of the most important things that I've been trying to do more in Avalon that I didn't even really do as much in my previous projects is, anytime that I have these ideas, or I see something that I've done that I think I could do better, even if it's going to be really tedious and really annoying, and it might take me a lot more time to do it, I just try to like buckle down and at least give it a fair shot. And so this was one of those instances, right? Like I didn't even know if this interchange was going to work. Like I had some fear that it wouldn't really fit underneath the railway correctly. It was going to be too steep, and I was going to have to delete the whole thing. And I do frequently have to delete the entire thing that I try, right? Like that's just kind of part of the game. Like you have to do that at some points. But I went ahead and tried it anyway, and I think that it really turned out even better than I had pictured in my head. And I'm really glad that I did it now, even though it required a lot of tedious work, especially, you know, all of these elevation steps and trying to select all these nodes that are like interfering with each other, right? Like it can be tedious, and especially, you know, like this isn't even that bad. I would say that some of the really challenging decisions to make are like, hey, let's revamp the metro system downtown that's like covered in props, or like, you know, let's rebuild this section right in the middle of downtown that's like colliding with a billion different objects, right? Like that, those are the really tedious decisions to make. But I think that those decisions that you make are what defines how good your city becomes. So I really think that it's a good idea to just push yourself to constantly one-up your ideas, and if you have a good idea, you know, give it a fair shot, even if you think it's going to take a lot of time. I think that you'll just get a better result in the end. So that's what I did here, and I think that it actually paid off quite well. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I get that question a lot, and I think that this is probably the closest way that I could answer it effectively. It's really about having some patience and a little bit of discipline to do things that maybe sound tedious when there's, you know, a very obvious, easier way to do it. Obviously, you can't just go down the rabbit hole of doing this, or you'll never finish a project. But but I guess there's probably a careful balance somewhere in there. I don't know. I really enjoy indulging myself in just continually doing this and continually prolonging the project. I think that it's easier for me to do it because I have a YouTube series on it, and so like, you know, I'm sure you guys won't complain if Avalon goes on forever, and I really enjoy just like totally over engineering things. And I think this is weird actually. I just thought of this now, but like I really love doing this kind of stuff. I really love spending absurd amounts of time like perfecting things, and I can't always do that in other aspects of my life, right? Like I'm an engineer. That's my, you know, I work as a game developer, and so I write a lot of code, and in my personal projects, I spend all of this time like refactoring things and changing things and perfecting things, but I can't do that at work. Like I can make things good. I can make things really good even, but I can't always just continually iterate and make things better. Like there are points where it's like, I got to get this thing done because it needs to be, you know, like I just need to finish this so that somebody else can do their job, right? Like I can't just continually work forever. But it's kind of awesome because with Avalon, I mean, who's going to stop me, right? Like I can just keep working on it as long as I want. So that's the other kind of awesome thing about City Skylines, is that this can be your outlet to just like continually iterate and make something awesome. If you enjoy doing that, a lot of people don't. So maybe it's not for everybody, but that's how I feel anyway. But with all that said, we are at the end of the episode, so I hope you guys enjoyed this one. We'll come back next time and actually work on the station. This was the last bit of you know, skeleton work, but I hope you enjoyed this one. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.